with trades taking shape around the league, we need to stay on our toes when it comes to building NBA DFS lineups, right? DraftKings contributors Nick Friar, Garion Thorne, Matt Maiselman, everybody is here to share their favorite DraftKings plays on tonight's 6-game slate. We're men of the people. We love the adorable DFS peasants. So let's start in the value department. A little opposite what we typically do here, flipping the game script. Who's a cheaper dude you recommend people to build around tonight, Garion?
Yeah, I mean, as important as kind of keeping an eye on the trades that are still to happen the next, 24 hours with these slates on Wednesday and Thursday, we also have to remember the trades that have already happened and how that is affecting rosters. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that we don't see any of the new Sacramento Kings tonight, as we didn't see them in last night's game. And that just creates a ton of value on this Kings roster because it's not just the fact that they traded a bunch of their players yesterday. I mean, Rashawn Holmes was a late scratch. They're dealing without Marvin Bagley right now. So, I mean, really, he's going to be a popular play, but I think you have to start this with Damian Jones at $3,700. It's a guy who played 29 minutes last night, had 36 DraftKings points. For the season as a whole, he's averaging just under a DraftKings point per minute. So if he's going to get anything resembling this amount of time, he's going to have a really tough time not bringing back value. And he's really not the only King that you can look at here. I mean, I would even say, he's not a value play, but, De'Aaron Fox's price tag went down after last night's performance. So I just think the Kings in general are all pretty mispriced, especially considering that they might not be able to have a better matchup here. I mean, Minnesota runs the fastest-paced offense in the league across the last 10 games. Both teams are on the second night of a back-to-back because it's a back-to-back against themselves, but this is just a really good matchup for any team, especially one that might be running an 8-man rotation out of pure desperation. So Jones is my favorite, but there's a lot of Kings you could use tonight.
All right, Matt, which cheap player do you like as a value play tonight?
So I'm potentially looking in the same spot, but I'm not necessarily convinced that the Kings won't have their new acquisitions yet. Apparently, the players are in Sacramento. It may just be a matter of getting physicals, or maybe they just want to hold them out for another game. I'm not really sure what's going on there. But if Sabonis and Lamb and Holiday are playing, then it kind of takes up a lot of this Kings value. So in that scenario, I think we'd have to look to Portland. That really becomes the team where a lot of the cheap players are. And we could see some rest with Portland too. Could be more trades, but they did just play last night against the Magic. Tonight they're playing the Lakers. So if, let's say, Yusuf Nurkic gets traded or is just resting tonight, I think Trendon Watford at 3,100 is the guy we have to look at. He's probably the starting center. It looked like last night Portland was running, I think it was a 3-center rotation with Watford, Greg Brown, and Yusuf Nurkic. If Nurkic doesn't play for whatever reason, it could be a few different reasons, then I think Watford and Brown both have to basically split the game at center and perhaps even play more than that where they're on the court together. So Watford's close to the minimum, and I probably do lean towards the Kings if the new guys aren't there, but if we have to lose some of that Kings value, I think Portland becomes the team to take a look at.
All right, cool. Friar, what do you want to do here, man, in the value department?
Yeah, we're talking a lot about that Kings game. I do like Malik Beasley on the other side of it at 4.1K with the way he's been playing. But I'm looking more kind of staying away from all this trade uncertainty right now. And Jonathan Kuminga is one of the ways that I want to do that tonight. 4.4K versus the Jazz. He's provided 5 times value in 3 straight. No Klay Thompson tonight. In that situation with no Klay Thompson and no Draymond Green, he has the 4th highest use rate on the team, 24.9% behind Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, and Wiggins. Of course, Poole is a decent value option, of course, more mid-range at 5.6, 5.8K tonight. And also in these situations, Kuminga is providing 0.9 DK fantasy points per minute, and that's with Thompson and Draymond Green off the floor.
All right, Garion, I know you had the solid value write-up here on DK Nation, so that's why you were so good at what you just did when we were talking value plays. But Steph Curry and DeJounte Murray are 2 of the 3 players north of 10K in the guard department, with LeBron being the 3rd. Which one are you paying up for here, Garion, or are you going to go in another direction for your building block at this position?
I mean, I never have a problem playing DeJounte Murray. I'll say that right off the top. But I do think there are better options on a per-dollar basis, a little bit lower on the point guard slate. I already mentioned De'Aaron Fox, and again, that is contingent on, Domantas Sabonis not showing up and being Domantas Sabonis for the Kings tonight. But The other guy I'm really looking at, and look, I don't think this is a secret. This is the highest totaled game on the slate, but LaMelo Ball at 8,800. I mean, not coming off his best performance. He's actually had two relatively underwhelming performances in a row. The Hornets in general have just been underwhelming their last 5 or 6 games, but I don't know if it's because they've got a couple of, I don't want to say significant injuries in the rotation aside from Gordon Hayward, but it's not just Hayward. They're also missing, Martin. They're missing Book Knight. And that's really kind of created this situation where Borrego, in their last game against the Raptors, kind of stole Nick Nurse's playbook and just started playing his starters absurd amounts of minutes. And that meant 44.1 minutes for LaMelo Ball in that contest. If this is what they're going to do with their injury issues, and Ball is set to play somewhere in the realm of 40 minutes tonight against a Bulls team that cannot play a lick of defense and playing up tempo because he's a member of the Charlotte Hornets, I mean, I really think you could be looking at like a 60-65 DraftKings point ceiling for LaMelo Ball, someone who averages over 1.3 DraftKings points per minute so far this season anyway. So I just think the minutes volume and the minutes potential here for Ball makes him my favorite guard play on this slate.
Okay, who is your favorite guard play on this slate, Nick?
So guys are talking about the Blazers situation, what's going on over there. And Anthony Simons is a guy who I'm looking at 7.3K. Might be a little bit of a chalky play tonight. I mean, because we know when Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Norman Powell were off the floor earlier in the season, he was a must play. Now 2/3 of that group isn't even on the roster anymore. So this is a situation where he has a 28.6% usage rate. That's a team high. He's right there towards the top end of the team in this situation in DK fantasy points per minute at 1.06. So I like him in this spot tonight. Another guy a little higher priced, Zach Levine at 9.1K against the Hornets. Garion was talking about that game a little bit, but I have a couple forward plays that I like a little bit more that I'd rather spend my money there. But Levine is still a good option tonight on that higher end.
All right, Matty, talk to me. Your guard you build around.
So these guys have mentioned two players that I really like in LaMelo Ball and Anthony Simons, but I am a little worried about ownership for both of them. I think they're both definitely underpriced. So in order to be contrarian at guard, I think you do want to pay up, and that's where you find the lower ownership players. To me, Steph Curry is the best choice here. You have Klay Thompson not playing, so that's going to be more shots for Steph. And then they're playing the Jazz, who ordinarily are a pretty tough matchup, but without Rudy Gobert, the defense figured to be a lot worse, and it kind of has. But the thing that's also been going on with the Jazz is Donovan Mitchell hasn't played, which has meant the team has played at a slower pace too. Now we have the perfect storm for opponents where you get Mitchell out there, not playing a ton of defense, playing really good offense, driving up the pace of the game, but we still don't have Gobert, so that interior defense isn't there either. I think this actually sets up to be a really good matchup for the Warriors, even though they're facing a team that we would normally think of as really good defensively. So all of that kind of works together. And because Steph is more expensive than these other guys too, I think a lot less people play him. So I like Steph a lot for tonight.
Nick, you just mentioned you're going to save your cash. You're going to spend it in the forward department. So give me the dude or dudes you would consider building around here.
Yeah, so there are two guys, and they're both coming from the Charlotte-Chicago game tonight. I like DeMar DeRozan a lot, 9.6K, and I like Kelly Oubre a lot. Kind of fits more just outside that value range of 5.6K. I think Kelly Oubre is probably my favorite play tonight, but I'll talk about DeMar DeRozan. Actually, I'll talk about Oubre first. This is tied for the highest total on DK Sportsbook tonight. He's comfortably returned 5 times value at this price tag in 4 of his last 5. Bulls bottom 10 in defensive rating, and with no Gordon Hayward on the floor tonight, he has the 3rd highest usage rate in that situation. 1.02 DK fantasy points per minute. I'm not seeing any scoring props for Oubre tonight, but I would be looking for those because I do think he's in a great spot. You know, Garion was talking about Ball, similar kind of reasons in terms of minutes and everything, but obviously different level than Ball. With DeMar DeRozan, 9.6K, he's just been a model of consistency from a DFS side. He's provided 5 times value in his last 7 games. Whether that's translated into wins or not, that's a whole nother issue. But we talk about Charlotte all the time. Bad on defense, pace up spot, again, total. So I like both these guys a lot tonight.
I mean, DeRozan's just stuffing the stat sheet like left and right. 46 plus DraftKings points in 11 straight games. And as you just mentioned, the Hornets 9th in defensive efficiency this season. Garion, who's a forward you'd like to build around?
Yeah, I think it has to begin and end with DeRozan. Just considering he's taken 86 field goal attempts his last 3 games, and that might not even be the most appealing aspect of his game tonight. I mean, we know the Bulls have been dealing with just an insane amount of backcourt injuries, specifically to their point guards. They can't seem to keep a point guard healthy longer than like a week. And with Dosunmu out, I mean, we know from DeRozan's, his last season with the Raptors, his time throughout, his time with the Spurs, he can play point forward. I mean, he sees the court better than most guys at his position. So I think we could get a scenario here where DeRozan, out of sheer necessity, probably has to flirt with a triple-double because he's probably going to play 38 to 40 minutes in this contest anyway. He's going to be popular. I mean, maybe you could pivot to someone like Pascal Siakam, although I think rarely do we have blowout concerns and minutes concerns with the Raptors guys. But without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I have a hard time seeing this game against the Thunder be close. So I would say DeRozan is number one, and I would back Nick up too. I think Oubre is also a fantastic play, but anyone in this game is going to be popular. That is something you kind of just have to accept. Yeah.
Hey, Maddie, what about Pascal Siakam? He seems like another high salary option, like worth considering.
Yeah, I think Siakam is fine. It's playing the Thunder now. It's kind of one of those things that I've talked about a bunch, where you take a player off the opposing team and the game slows down because that player is the reason the team's up tempo. So that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I'm a little worried about Raptors for blowout reasons too. The team I want to stick with is the Hornets, and I almost think you have to play a Hornets forward because their rotation is just so thin that it's not necessarily the case that there's one guy who's a total standout. I mean, I think Oubre is a really good value play, but between Oubre, PJ Washington, and then Miles Bridges, who I think I like more than both of them, I just think that the chances of all of them being average or worse are very low. Someone's going to be great here. So I'm going to go with Bridges. I think he goes more overlooked because of the price. He's kind of in this no man's land range where I think a lot of people take guards that are either a little bit more expensive or a little cheaper than him. I think a lot of the popular forward and center plays are a lot cheaper. Bridges at 7,800 just doesn't really fit that kind of lineup construction. And yeah, he might play 45 minutes tonight. Like, this is an important game for the Hornets in the standings. They're on a losing streak. They're playing the Bulls, who are ahead of them in the Eastern Conference. The Hornets might be getting a little more desperate to get themselves into the playoffs in the second half of the season. I think that could be part of what's going on, along with the injuries, why we're seeing the starters play more minutes. So Bridges, I think, is really safe in terms of the minutes, although to be fair, like 2 days ago, I thought Gordon Hayward was safe, and then he got injured in the game. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But I think the Hornets in general are a really good place to target for forwards.
And they play at the sixth fastest pace in the NBA. That doesn't hurt at all. Guys, need you quick on this last one. To the men in the middle we go. They're large, in charge. Anthony Davis is the only center with a $10,000 price tag. He's on the second half of a back-to-back, though. So is the Towns. Maybe Vucevic is the way to go here? I mean, what are you doing at center, Garion?
I do like AD. I mean, it's funny. We've spent so much time the last month talking about how the Raptors run their players into the ground. It seems like every team in the NBA is really starting to solidify their rotations. And the Lakers, I mean, there was a little ramp-up period for Davis. He had 2 games where he was playing with a minutes restriction. He's averaged over 38 minutes per game his last 5. I mean, Davis is just such an efficient player. I know it's a back-to-back, but Portland, sort of as Matt was alluding to earlier, doesn't really have anyone to stop him in the middle and in the interior in the paint. I think Davis could have a really good game tonight, so I'm not afraid to pay up for him on the second night of a back-to-back.
All right, Matt. I mean, for Cat, $9,700, dude. That's a reasonable salary for one of the best centers.
Yeah, it definitely is. So for both Davis and Towns, I think we have to pay attention to who's out there for the other team. If the Kings are playing a bunch of backups, it's better for Towns. If the Blazers don't have Nurkic out there, it's better for Davis. But if Nurkic himself does play tonight, I think he's a guy to go with. So I like Yusuf Nurkic a lot at 8,200. I think there might be people worrying about a blowout with Portland. They're close to 10-point underdogs now. But with all the players they've traded away, I think that a lot more of the offense has to run through Nurkic. They didn't play well last night against the Magic, but I just think you're getting a guy who has massive upside, probably a little bit lower ownership than this top tier, and he's more affordable than them. So Nurkic to me seems like a better choice than spending all the way up.
Nick, real quick at center.
If Nurkic is on the floor tonight, I like him most. 1.360K fantasy points per minute without those 3 guys I mentioned earlier on the floor. If he doesn't go tonight, Jared Allen is just a little bit cheaper. I like him a lot. Whether or not LeVert plays, he's been rolling lately.